Hi everyone, welcome to the Elite Property Academy. Well, I'll call it a podcast because it's not, it's just more so like a live feed, like a live video. I said to everyone that I was going to create a forum, a specific forum for property investors alike, and I said that I was going to do a weekly live meet. When I say a weekly, when I say live meet, I suppose that's the wrong way of saying it. A weekly video. Is that the best way of saying it as well? Don't know is the honest answer. Just every week I was going to do a live video so that you guys can see what I'm doing, how I'm doing, where we're going, and more importantly, it's a case of you guys also being able to interact. So every week we do a new live feed with someone else, so a collaboration with a number of people. The reason why I do that is because I'm not suggesting that I know it all, far from it in actual fact. The reason why I do it is so that I get to learn as well, you guys get to learn, and we build up a massive library of all the people that are in the property community, and it also elevates them, shows them of their being an expert in their field as well. So where do we go from here? So it is Wednesday evening, Wednesday afternoon. We're going to try and do some of these every week, at least once a week with different people, and going through, just having a quick look at some of the questions that are. So at the start of the session, at the start of the day, I asked people, I said, what kind of questions do you want? I'm quickly just flicking through, see some of the questions that come through. So one of the questions that came through was by a gentleman called Ajit, who's in the Elite Property Academy. Now, for those that don't know, first of all, I should give the Elite Property Academy a bit of a plug. It's a property platform, it's a property forum, should I say, on Facebook, and it is called the Elite Property Academy. So if you go to www.facebook.com/groups/the Elite Property Academy. We only started this week, so it's the week beginning the 18th of September 2017. And all of a sudden we've got 550 members. So it's okay, it's growing slowly but surely. The whole point of doing the videos as well is also to increase the traffic into the forum as well. So first question that came in from Ajit says, "Hi Arsh," he goes, how do you value a plot of land? The vendor is not sure of the exact size, but it has capacity for 3 terrace houses to be built. Location is northwest region. Okay, perfect. So great question, great first question. It's something that I know a fair bit about because I've got a bit of development background as well. So great question. So first question, I made a few notes. Obviously, I want to make sure that I was prepared for the session and make sure that I'm giving great value as well. So first question that I ask is, Ajit, so you said that there's potential to create 3 terraced houses on the plot of land. If there's no kind of site layout, or if you've got no sizes of the plots, how are you literally just potentially plotted them on there? And if that's the case, there's nothing wrong with that, but we need to be a little bit more specific with that, because obviously naturally there are certain guidelines as to planning what would require for the width of a property, etc. Now, the way that I work with developments is very simple. I always work backwards. When I say work backwards, I have a look at potentially the GDV. So in this scenario here, we've got, you're saying that you can potentially fit 3 terraced houses on. So we generally look at what the market's doing and what the gross development value would be. When we talk about gross development value, we're talking about the value of all 3 houses lumped them together. So let's just say that houses are worth 100,000 each. I'll keep it nice and easy, nice and round figures. In theory, the gross development value would be £300,000, which is 100,000 times by 3. Now, just by the way, guys, if you are watching this live, feel free to give us a like, feel free to give us a share, just so that we can kind of spread the word of the forum and the platform. So, so the gross development value in this scenario would be £300,000. Now, technically speaking, you've got to ask yourself, has he had a value? Has he had a valuation on this plot? And if so, where's it come from? Now, in the old days, when we talk about the old days, we're talking about prior crash. The simple and the simplistic valuation that was done very simply was a third, and a third. When we talk a third, and a third, so a third of it was build cost, a third of it was the cost of the land, a third of it was, technically speaking, profit. Now, that meant that developers were working on a 33% profit margin. But as you know now, that a lot of developers are actually working anywhere between 15 and 20%. Really, you've got to have a look at the profit margins as to what you would like to achieve in order for us to work backwards. So working backwards basically means we understand what the gross development value is. We kind of figure out the kind of profit margin, what we're looking to achieve. And then we start working backwards from there. So what can we achieve on there? How are we going to get it? And more importantly, we're going to have a look at any issues that we're going to come across along the way. When we say issues, there's lots of things that developers never think of from the outset. Now, so for argument's sake, so this plot of land here, question is, if it's such a good deal, was it not already been done? Now, seems a little bit skeptical, but the honest answer is that you've got to ask yourself, is that if it is such a good deal, why has it not done previously? Are there issues in the ground? Are there issues with the planning? Has the planning previously been refused? And if that's the case, you've got to ask yourself, okay, do you really want to tackle that? Now, I'm going to step back slightly. I'm going to, admittedly, I do talk around in circles, so stick with me shortly. Stick with me. So, if someone came to me and said, "Arsh, okay, I've got a plot of land and we can potentially get 3 terrace houses," the first thing that I would do is search the planning portal, so whatever council it may be. So let's just choose Wolverhampton or Birmingham City Council. I would go onto their planning portal, which is online, and I would literally just check to put the address in and see what comes up with that property. Now, straight away, it may have been refused planning. It may have been refused planning. It could have been that they tried to put more units on the site. It could have been that it was pure design, purely a bad design. It could have been that there's certain things that they refused or they forgot to put in. So there's a number of things. So you can look at that planning application. You can also look at the objections that came in from the local council. You can, sorry, not the local council. From the neighbouring properties. You can have a look at what the highways officer said. You can have a look at what the environmental officer said, and as a result of that, you start to get a picture as to what's exactly happened with that property. Does that kind of make sense so far? Stay with me, guys. Like I said, the whole point of me doing these live feeds is so that it's an interactive session. More importantly. So first of all, question that's come in straight away. Thanks, Oliver. He goes, do you use Land Insight software tool for searching out land? Believe it or not, Oliver, I don't personally. But shall I tell you? Shall I let you into a little secret as to what I do to search land? I trawl. Well, there's a number of things, but one of the things that I find that has been most successful for me is trawling planning registers. When we say that, what that basically means, excuse me, is that I look through planning registers. I like to have a look at what's been approved and what's been refused and what has also been withdrawn. Why do I look for these? Purely because if it's been approved, fantastic. We've potentially got a site that we could acquire with the benefit of planning permission. If it's been refused, even better. The reason being, it gives us an opportunity to go and acquire a site that hasn't got planning permission, but also we get to do a bit more due diligence on the site to understand why planning permission wasn't previously granted. Now, when we talk about that, we're looking at, is it purely bad design? Was there over density on the site? Is there any contamination issues? Was there a site investigation report included? I'm going to give you an example. Now, there's a site in Wolverhampton that I've had my eye on for such a long time. I keep saying to myself, why has no one developed it? And believe it or not, lots of large players have had a look at it. And I was with my architect, planning consultant on Monday, so 2 days ago. I just said to him, have you done any work on it? He goes, yeah, I've spoken to a number of developers on it. And the reason why it's not been touched is because there's approximately £250,000 worth of cost in removing the existing asbestos. That's before you even do anything else to the site. So, and that automatically kind of blows everything else off it. So, you know, you've got to have a look at these little things, especially when you're doing it. And that, believe it or not, was that's a conversion project. So hopefully, you know, that's a little tip that you can take away from it. So not every site is going to be clean and it's going to be easy. So you've got to do your due diligence. You've got to make sure that you've got the site investigation reports, you've got the contamination reports, you've got the planning registers. Not the planning registers. You've got either the approval or the refusal or the withdrawal notice. As a result of that, you can then potentially pass that on to your planners and say, guys, or your architects say, guys, okay, I've seen this site. Here's what it's been refused for. As a result of that refusal, do you reckon we can do something with it? Off the back of that, your architect should then say, well, you know what, to be fair, I think this got refused on this and this ground, and I think we can overcome it by saying this and this. Does that kind of make sense so far? Feel free, again, if you're listening in, just to interact and say, yeah, okay, I understand, or you're going too fast. I appreciate I'm speaking quite quickly. We've got a lot of content to fill in. We're only online, hopefully, for no more than 30 minutes, because I want to try and keep these fresh and I don't want them to be prolonged. So, first question is, always check your planning registers. See what gets approved, see what gets refused, see what gets withheld. Off the back of that, you'll be able to pick up some sites. Now, if it has been refused, that gives you a fantastic opportunity to go in and renegotiate with the vendor. So, because let's face it, and you guys as property investors, how many times have you put in planning permission and it hasn't always gone according to plan? Now, I'm going to put my hand up. That's been me. I can't 100%. I can't always say that I've 100% got it right. No one ever has. I thought I tried to get a little bit more on the site than I thought was coming up, but come on, let's face it, I'm a property investor. That's what I try and do. I try and maximise on the site. Now, moving forward, if it doesn't get approved, you know, I've been in positions where I've sat down and think, okay, crap, what am I going to do with this now? I didn't really have a plan B for it because I thought plan A was going to go straight through. It was going to be plain sailing, and we were going to get planning permission. Now, most people, when it gets refused, don't have a plan B. So that's where you could literally come in and sweep up the site. So say, guys, okay, we understand it got refused planning permission. Here's what I think we can do. And this is where it opens up a meridian of options for you. So it could open up a potential for JV partnerships. Now, I'm not saying that you jump into bed with every JV partner straight away. You could do some due diligence. Other things that it could open up for is a cheap site. It could open up for sites for subject to planning permission. So you don't necessarily have to take the risk that they previously took. Hopefully, that's just give you a bit of insight, because on that basis alone, you don't need to make those mistakes. You can literally take your time in doing the deal. I'm just checking just to make sure that I'm covering all the things that I've got to cover. So yes, so you can pick up a load of sites off there. Now, next question. Go back to your question. Your 3 townhouses. Like I said, you need to initially figure out what the gross development value is. Off the back of the gross development value, you then start to think of how much is it going to cost to build. You've also got to think of what kind of profit margin are you looking to achieve in terms of percentage. You can't just say, okay, you know what, I want to achieve 100 grand off this site, because it won't work. It will never work. You've got to look at it from a percentage point of view. I'll be happy with a 20% profit margin on this site. You know, some people are working on 15% margins. You know, the cheaper the site, the better the margin. That is without a doubt the aim of the game. The cheaper you can get the site, you know, if you can do JV with the owner, even better, because it creates a win-win scenario. It allows you to get in with little capital, and the only cost that you have to pull together is is the development cost. But let's face it now, you don't even require that. If you use sites as crowdfunding platforms, you can actually build a site out with none of your own money. But that's if you start to become a little bit more strategic and a little bit more creative. It may take you a little bit of time to get to that point, and you know, there's nothing wrong with that. We all started from somewhere. So looking at your development costs, looking at your profit margin, looking at what your end product's going to be, also taking into consideration the stuff that you've got to put in place, like are you going to project manage yourself? Are you going to, you're going to put it out to tender? you're going to get someone to do the full lot. You've got to then come together and start looking at what all the figures are going to be. So for argument's sake, prior to the crash, they were working on around £1,000 per square foot. Sorry, not per square foot, per square metre. And so in that respect, if you've got let's say a house and it's 20 square metres, you pretty much know that 20 times £1,000 per square metre, you know what your costs are going to be. But again, if you've got a good architect and if you don't feel like you're too competent with that, get yourself a good architect and get yourself a good person that's going to deal with all the M&E, so the mechanical and the engineering drawings. And they can do all these calculations for that. If you really want to go one step further, you get a QS involved, a quantity surveyor. So there is a lot of help out there. Obviously, the more help you get, the more costing you have to add into your development. And the costing is the key, because if you get costings wrong, it could either send you boom or bust. And that's the honest answer. Developments can be a little bit risky if they don't go according to plan. And the reason, okay, I'm going to let you into a little story now. So get comfortable. So prior to the crash, I was a decent sized developer, and I don't mind saying that. So we would build the best part of a couple hundred units per year. And one thing that I don't like about developments now is that there are so many different ways of attracting great profit, but without having to take the risk. When we say that, you don't have to take the risk. And this kind of comes on to a question that Jatinder asked earlier in the day. So Jatinder, hope you are. Thanks for coming onto the platform, or thanks for coming onto the forum. Keep calling it a platform for some reason. Now, Jatinder asked the question, goes, how do you start in property if you've got no money and you don't want to deal with tenants? Now, that's a great way, because believe it or not, you've actually answered two of your own questions. Now, when people get involved in property, they don't automatically have a look at what their strengths and their weaknesses are. Now, for me, my strengths is that I'm very strategic. My weaknesses are, it wasn't a weakness up until recently, really. I felt like that tenants were a bit of a grind on my daily life. So in that respect, I outsourced all the tenants and the management of my portfolio, believe it or not, to my own company. But it just meant that I don't have the day-to-day dealing with tenants any longer, and it allows me to go off and do more stuff. So you've got to have a look at what's your strength and weakness. You say you don't want to deal with tenants. So technically speaking, yes, you could still build your own portfolio, like a rent-to-rent portfolio. Yes, you could still take properties on, such as like lease options. And there's nothing wrong with lease options if you do them legally, you do them correctly and get all the correct legal advice. And then you could outsource it, but obviously there's a cost associated to that. I'm not really too fussed about the cost on that, because obviously I own the letting agency that's managing the portfolio, so that's doing really well for me. Off the back of that, if you don't want to outsource it, maybe rent to rent isn't the right thing for you. And the reason why I say that is because in order to start a portfolio or to build a portfolio of properties, naturally you're going to require cash, whether that be your cash or whether that be someone else's cash. There is going to be some cash that's required. Now, off the back of that, if you've got no money yourself and you don't want tenants, you've got to start to think, well, what else can you do? Now, having a look at this now, what else do you reckon you can do, guys? So feel free to take a moment just to have a think about what else can you do where you can get your hands on a portfolio or get your hands on some property with none of your own money. Now, for me, the easiest way of doing that is, I would say, is by sourcing. When we say sourcing, you can call it deal trading. You can call it deal trading. You can call it packaging, call it sourcing, whatever you want to call it. The fact is that you're going to be in a position where you're going to literally try and not acquire the property, try and source the property, package it, and then sell it on to another property investor and make a fee out of the centre of it. Does that make sense? Now, Jatinder's thinking, well, I wanted to build a portfolio for myself. And if that's what you want to do, you've got nothing wrong. You can do that, and you can still build a rent-to-rent portfolio and then outsource management of it. When we say outsource, you've got to make sure that when you put it into your figures, you allow a percentage for management, voids, maintenance, and also contingency costs in there as well. Because let's just say that you take a property on for, let's say, £1,000 a month, and so you're paying the landlord £1,000 a month, and the gross rental income is going to be circa around £2,000 a month. Now, after you've taken out your consideration for your utilities costs, after you've taken out your voids, your bad debt, your management, and potentially a contingency, it may leave very little left. So you have to, again, work backwards, pretty much like a development. You have to work backwards to see where you stand with that. So I'm just trying to think, where are we? So we're about 20 minutes in, and like I said, I like to try and keep this short and sweet, just so that I can give some golden nuggets and we keep moving forward. Are there any other questions that you want to ask in respect of what we do, how we do, and why we do? Or is there anything that you've got burning desire to ask whilst we're online? Happy to help. Happy to help. Let's just keep going through some of the questions. Okay, now so far I think we're good. Just to keep, okay, just having a quick look. Okay, so like I said, the whole point of these videos is just to, instead of just making another property forum, it is about giving value. It's about giving you guys the opportunity to share some of your successes, also share some of the lessons that you've learned along the way. Like I say, no one will ever get it 100% of the right. No one will always get it right 100% of the time. It's impossible to do. And if you have come across some issues previously, feel free to share what has happened previously as well, because it will allow someone to avoid the pitfall in the future as well. So you've done your bit for, you could say you've done your bit for charity. So feel free to stay vocal on the platform. If there's anything that you want to share, if there's anyone that wants to come on and do a live video for next week, happy to have a chat with them. In the meanwhile, I've got a few people that I'd like to invite. But on that note, guys, I wish you all a very good Wednesday. Hopefully you've enjoyed the session. Hopefully you've enjoyed the session. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully I haven't waffled on for too long, or hopefully you found the information to be of great content. And as always, any questions, feel free to get in contact, and I will speak to you all soon. Have a great afternoon, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.